right, how's everyone doing tonight? We are the Tripwire podcast, part of the Triple Play Fantasy family, which is now part of the Fantasy Points Media Group. So we're here every Monday night, 8 p.m. on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, right before Monday Night Football, getting you ready for the following week waiver wire. You can catch us, subscribe to us on the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, like the video, and you can follow our show on Twitter. So welcome, Tobe. How's it going tonight?
Back again, almost playoff time.
We're almost there.
It's nearing us.
Yep.
It's hard to believe.
We have a very special guest tonight. So he's a content contributor for FanDuel and the content creator for Front Yard Fantasy. We have Felicio at GMenJ on Twitter. Welcome, man. Thank you for joining us. We got a little home and home going on.
Yeah. You were with us a few times a few weeks ago. Tobe,
Yeah.
you were on. Me and you were on the same show. That was like April or something like that. I think something like that. So I appreciate you guys having me. It's the first time, Zach, I've got to talk to you face to face. Tobe, I have a few times. I think we've been on Rum Boys a few times together, and we were on Front Yard Fantasy. But yeah, I'm excited. Can you believe it's going to be week 14 already? It just blows my mind.
I can't believe it. So we're already into week 14. So we're gonna be talking about players that are rostered in less than 50% of leagues. And unfortunately, the NFL doesn't care about fantasy football and gave us 4 teams on bye for our final regular season matchup. So we have the Indianapolis Colts, the Miami Dolphins, New England Patriots, and the Philadelphia Eagles all on bye for week 14. So it's a lot of players you're probably starting. So hopefully you've already prepared for that, or you've already made the playoffs and you're just having fun in week 14. But just in case, we're going to talk about a bunch of players for you to hopefully pick up. Not going to lie to you. It's probably one of our lightest weeks of quality waiver wire pickups, but hey, we'll try to find some gems for you. So before we talk about the first guy, I actually want to take all of us off screen real quick to show our graphic. So Tobe did an amazing job, as always, with our graphic, but this might be my favorite one of the season. So it's Taysom Hill, if you didn't know who that was, of the New Orleans Saints. He gets the New York Jets this week, 35.9% rostered. So, Jay, he just had a solid game against Dallas. Fantasy point-wise, did well. From a passing standpoint, not the best. So how are you feeling about Taysom Hill going into a must-win game in week 14 for you?
I tell you what, as much as it hurts me to say this, I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. The way that Lamar's playing, I might be more comfortable playing Taysom Hill going into this week with the matchup. Lamar's going up against Cleveland, a divisional game. We saw this week what divisional games do. Everybody's expecting high-scoring games, but against the Steelers, he just hasn't looked good. Taysom Hill, his passing isn't there. He went through 4 interceptions the last game, but he's got that rushing floor. And Lamar only has 1 rushing touchdown on the season, I believe. It's you're not getting what you paid for with Lamar Jackson. It really depends on the scenario. Superflex, Taysom Hill's a must start. But in 1 QB leagues, if you've got the Kyler Murrays, the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen's, you're definitely not starting those guys over him. But once you start getting more towards the middle of the pack, going up against the Jets, who you really have to consider him a running back that throws the ball. So the Jets give up the most points to opposing running backs. He's going to get the production on the ground. He still had in 6-point passing touchdown leagues, he had over 20 points with 4 interceptions. He couldn't have thrown the ball much worse. So even if he doesn't get quite as many yards, he had 264 yards. He doesn't throw 2 of those interceptions. You add an additional 50 yards on there. He's got a pretty safe floor, and he's really all they have other than Alvin Kamara, who should hopefully come back this week. So this offense is going to flow through those 2 guys. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a run-heavy game script going into the game, especially with as bad as the Jets are against the run. I think Taysom Hill's a must-start this week.
Yeah, he's proven the Konami code quarterback that we've talked about before. He had a 46.3% completion percentage, which is awful with the 4 interceptions, but he ran 11 times for 101 yards. He didn't even score a rushing touchdown and he still was able to put up 24.66 points and a 6 point.
Yeah, that's 10 points right there. It's a cheat code.
Yeah, I mean, take away 3 of those interceptions, you get 6 points back to your scoring. I mean, that's a 30-point game. So there's definitely, I would say he's high risk but high reward. So I think it kind of depends on what your roster looks like, who your other options are, like you said, and is he worth it to you? And Toby, did you have any feelings about Hill?
I mean, he is a must-start quarterback, especially with guys like Mac Jones and other people like that on bye this week as well. But if you're still in a 4-point passing touchdown league, his floor is even higher just because of his legs. I mean, his rushing touchdowns 6, passing touchdowns 4. I'd rather somebody that has a pretty good chance of getting a rushing touchdown as a quarterback. So if you're still in a 4-point passing touchdown, he's probably a top 12 quarterback this week.
Yeah, that's very.
I would even argue it in 6. And he's sitting on.
Let me ask you guys this. I'm gonna spin it on you. Sure. When you're in a game, when you have to win to make the playoffs, who are you starting? Lamar Jackson or Taysom Hill?
Am I the underdog?
Even the point that we all hesitated says everything you need to say.
Yeah.
I'm probably going Hill.
Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds. Just because it's a Jets. If he didn't have as good of a
matchup.
And
that's what it has to do. It's a terrible matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I'm trying to think of, like, I drafted Lamar to be a stud, and I'm going to go down with my stud that I thought I drafted, but
I say I would start Hill. I'd still start Lamar Jackson. I know.
Hill
is probably the safer play, to be honest. The way that
Myles Garrett could destroy the Ravens' offensive line. They did not look good.
If I'm the underdog, I'm still starting Lamar. But if I have a pretty good chance to win, if I look like if my matchup better to my opponent, I might throw Hill out there just to have a safe floor, because we could see another Lamar 4-pick game against Cleveland like he had just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but he's cost him in games at this point. It hurts to say, but he is the way he's playing.
All right. So now, if we thought quarterbacks are rough this week, let me show you the list we have for running backs. So the running backs we have are Dontrell Hilliard, Deontay Foreman, both on the same team. Sony Michel, who was amazing this past week, but we don't know if Henderson will be back or not. So he might be sharing the workload. And then Amir Abdullah, who's now the backup running back in Carolina, maybe could be the third down specialist. So I wanted to focus, because we've talked about some of these guys before. Toby, can you just cover Dontrell Hilliard and Deontay Foreman? Like I said, they both play for the Titans. They get Jacksonville this week. They're both rostered just over 35% in an ESPN league. So they're both pretty widely available. Do you like either of them? Neither of them? Maybe one of them?
I think both can bring something to the table if you're dealing with running back injuries like most people are. And they both played on about 50% against the Patriots this week 11. They're coming off a bye this week, and they get a good matchup with Jacksonville. We just saw Sony Michel get, 20 carries for 124 and a touchdown. So Jacksonville gives up yards on the ground. We know it's not a great defense. And if I'm in a PPR league, I might give a slight lean to Hilliard because they still trust him enough to run the ball, and he's going to be the one in on third downs. But even if I am in a PPR league and Hilliard gets taken, I'm still putting in a claim in for Deontay Foreman because, he has fresh legs. He looks like he has fresh legs. He's done it before. We've seen him provide in fantasy for a week here and a week there in the past. So seeing them both go over 100 against a good Patriots defense, now that game was a blowout, but I think both of them splitting down the middle. I think you can still see 2 pretty decent fantasy weeks in the 12 to 15 point range, even in PPR leagues. So I'm at this point, if we're scraping the bottom of the barrel like we are with these 4 names, then I'm throwing out probably the rest of my fab, because what do people? If you have fab left at this point, you didn't spend any, so got to find some names somewhere.
That's fair. I won't beleaguer us too long on these running backs. They're not very exciting. If you really need somebody, anybody on this list you can pick up, but I would not expect much if you have to start them.
I think I would go, if I'm looking at it, I think I would go Michel first, because we still don't know the full extent. I know he's suited up, but he didn't even see the field hardly any, if any. So Sonny Michel would still be my number one. He's probably one that people are going to spend on. But if you just want something cheap, I mean, Foreman and Hilliard have roles on their team. They're going to continue to have them because I don't know if you see Derrick Henry until week 18, maybe. So for the long run, I'd look at Hilliard and Foreman. But you're looking for short term, maybe for Henderson owner, go get Michelle if you haven't already. You should have already. But
Fair enough. All right. So for the wide receivers, I still have Rashad Bateman on the list. I know he put up a bagel last night yesterday. But he's still got a lot of talent, so he's still under 50% rostered at 39.1.
Well, receiver can't play good if his quarterback don't play good.
That is fair. So we got Russell Gage, 24.9% rostered, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown winning it for the Detroit Lions. He gets Denver this week at 6.6% roster. So, Jay, let's start with Russell Gage coming off his best game of the season. Do we think it's a blip? Do we think it's going to continue? Do you trust Gage if you have to throw him into your lineup?
Trust, no, but I definitely think he should be rostered in all leagues. Over the past 3 games, he's averaging 9 targets per game. You know, a lot of people thought with Calvin Ridley being out with his issues that Kyle Pitts would be the guy to benefit, but it looks like Kyle Pitts is the one that's getting all the attention from opposing defenses, and Russell Gage is the one that's benefiting. Over the past 3 games, 5 catches, 6 catches. This past week, he had 11 catches for 130 yards, scored 22 points with no touchdowns. So somebody averaging 9 targets a game, you absolutely have to roster. I'm more comfortable with him as a flex or a wide receiver 3. But, you know, if you're in a tough spot with buys and stuff like that, you know, he could easily return wide receiver 2 value with that type of target share.
Yeah, no, I think, like you said, with that kind of target share, you got to at least stash him on your bench. And depending on your buy situation or injury situation, he's a great flex option if you're getting to that point.
Yeah. And especially as bad as the Falcons defense is, you know, they're going to be in a lot of playing a lot of catch up, and fantasy garbage time counts just the same. So, you know, he's going to be in a good game script pretty much. You know, they play Carolina, San Francisco, Detroit, Buffalo, New Orleans. So even in the tougher defensive matchups, wouldn't be surprised to see him get blown out, and then just the defense play prevent, you know, you get those garbage time points.
That's fair. And then, so we're going from someone who's been consistently getting targeted lately to Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. He has not seen a lot of targets until this past week. He went crazy with 12 targets. So trust, I'm sure, is way too strong of a word for you, Toby, but is he worth even picking up and stashing on your bench to see if this is going to be a new trend, or do you not even want to waste your time? Or Fab?
I'm picking him up and either stashing him, or in some cases you might have to start him, depending on how deep your league is, because you have guys coming up with like Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker on bye this next week. So, and I don't hate him because, I mean, we're seeing this team. They just got their first win. They're 1-10-1, and they're not making the playoffs. They already know they're not. So I think you see a filter of young talent come in. I mean, we just saw him have 12 targets. He's seen 4 more targets since week 8. And going later into the season, they're not playing for anything. So you get this young rookie, more reps, more of a target share. Probably see the demise of Khalif Raymond, who was doing well for a while. But I think Amon-Ra St. Brown's the new probably number 1 there. You're going to have a lot of targets. They're going to be down. Their defense isn't very good. His schedule isn't bad for the playoffs. He sees Atlanta once and Seattle once. So if he keeps seeing this 8+ targets a game going forward, then he might be a starter in the fantasy playoffs for your team. You never know. I would pick him up.
I mean, that sounds disgusting, but you're not wrong. And I also think it comes down to Swift. When does he come back? Because he's going to get a lot of targets back, but we have no idea at this point. All we know is an AC sprain injury, which he could be back next week. He could be gone for the season. They say they don't want to sit him out, but you never know. So I think
he should, but it's the Lions, so who knows?
Yeah.
And it's easy for us to say too. You know, we're not the guy out there competing. He wants to be out there if he feels like he can be. So,
but I mean, you see it a lot with these teams going into late in the year. They're seeing what they have.
Yep.
With the guys that have been on their 53-man all year, they're going to see what they have because they're not playing for anything. So they're going to try to build some rapport if that guy's going to stay on the team for longer than just this year. And I think Amon-Ra is their future. I mean, they spent the 4th round. They spent okay draft capital on him, so they want to see what they have in this guy. Get him some more run.
That's fair. Before we go into tight ends, we had a little shout out from our buddy Joey down here in Florida, part of the Front Yard Fantasy crew as well. I just want to say hi to everybody. So thanks for
that's my
tuning
guy,
in, Joey.
Joey. Yep. He writes for Razzball as well. He has a waiver wire article that comes out on Tuesdays too. So Joey's multi-talented, and he has his start, sits, and salutations video that he does with us. It's absolutely hilarious. So
that might be one of the funniest things out there.
Oh, I love it. And he's got a good one coming up this week too. So keep an eye out for it.
His start-sit graphics are awesome as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, the graphic guy cares about the graphics. All right. So if you guys were excited by all those other positions, then you are gonna love some tight ends. But actually, I think tight ends might actually be the strongest group this week. I'm not gonna lie. So we still have Tyler Conklin is only 34.9% rostered. He had a solid week against Pittsburgh, who has not looked that strong on defense. We have Evan Ingram. I know, disgusting, 28.7% rostered, but he's getting the targets. Foster Moreau, a disappointment. But we have no idea if Darren Waller is going to come back, despite reports today saying he's hopeful to be back. We don't know. They got Kansas City, 27.6% rostered. Cole Kmet, who just keeps getting vultured by Jimmy Graham, but he's still seeing some targets at 13.3% rostered. And then Gerald Everett, he has Houston, 7.3% rostered. So I want to talk about Gerald Everett because we haven't talked much about him this season. What a game for him this past week. So the good was he had 6 targets, which for a tight end is a solid output. That's really all you're expecting from your tight end. The bad, he only had 4 receptions, which again, not terrible, but it's still pretty bad. But then let's get to the ugly. On those 4 receptions, he had 7 yards, which I don't even know how that's possible. And then of those 4 receptions, he fumbled twice, one going into the end zone at the goal line. And then not only that, on one of those 4 receptions, or one of those that didn't even technically count as a reception, he bobbled it up in the air, popped it up, going into the end zone to score a touchdown for an interception. So this man could have had 2 touchdowns. Would have been amazing for your fantasy play. And we'd be praising him and be like, all right, he didn't get a lot of yards, but hey, he put up 2 touchdowns, which is all you wanted in a tight end. Instead, he ended up with, I think, negative points because of the fumbles and only having 7 yards. So that's horrible. But he's seen at least 75% of snap share the last 5 weeks, at least 6 targets in 3 of the last 4 weeks, and he gets to play Houston. So if you're in a deep enough league or you just need, I guess, kind of like you're hoping to get a lucky bounce back from a tight end, honestly, I like Gerald Everett. As crazy as that sounds and as bad as that last week was, I still kind of want to play him if I'm in a deeper league, if I'm desperate at tight end and I need someone to pick up. I think he shows that they look for him in the red zone. They look for him by the goal line.
That's huge. If you're telling me that I could, if you don't have one of the elite tight ends, we say we have our show on FanDuel on Sunday. We say there's this big glob of tight ends at the end of those tiers. That's basically you're expecting 3 to 5 catches, 30 to 50 yards, and you're hoping for a touchdown. And that's basically what Gerald Everett is. And if he's going to get the red zone looks, if he's going to get 6 targets, Russell Wilson looked a heck of a lot better this week than he has the past couple of weeks. I'm with you. I like Gerald Everett. I liked him a lot going into the season. I wish Russell Wilson wouldn't have got hurt because we know how much he likes to throw the tight end. I do think he could have had a much better season. I'm with you. I like Gerald Everett. If you're streaming tight ends, looking for that guy, I think he could do it for you.
I want to throw out a sneaky tight end play this week.
Go for it.
Nick Vannett. That's a name that you probably wouldn't tie to fantasy, but we just saw Dallas Goedert torch the Jets for 2 touchdowns and whatever amount of yards he had. But Taysom Hill looks for a little safety blanket. He doesn't predominantly throw the ball deep down the field. So against a Jets defense that is lackluster in coverage against tight ends, Nick Vannett could have a sneaky day.
Well, so you should say Taysom Hill then, right? Because he's a tight end, he's a quarterback, he's a running back.
We'll have to clip this if Nick Vannett scores.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. The glory pickup.
I had to throw one out there because Alex's not here. He's the tight end guru.
He's our tight end guy. We'll have to see how he feels about it after the show. So before we get to defenses, just want to give a shout out to Monkey Knife Fight. So if you've never played before, first time users use the code TRIPLEPLAY when you sign up. they'll match up to $100 of your first deposit, minimum $10 deposit. Monkey Knife Fight's a lot of fun. Basically, it's prop bets for all sorts of different points, yards, touchdowns. And then we're not just talking football. They cover pretty much every sport out there. We got a lot of sports going on right now. And hopefully your team is doing well. Hopefully our advice has helped you go into the playoffs or trying to get in the playoffs. But there's a good chance you also might have missed the playoffs, but that doesn't mean you can't still have some fun with fantasy. So give Monkey Knife Fight a try, but make sure you use triple play when you sign up so you get that extra bonus. All right, so then we got some defenses, which actually I think we have some solid options this week. So I'm going to list all of them, and then I want you guys to give me like one or two of your favorites for this week, and then you can even talk about looking at future schedules. So we have the New Orleans Saints. They get the New York Jets. They come just under at 49.1% rostered. So there's a 50-50 chance that they're still available for you. Carolina Panthers versus Atlanta at 46.9% rostered. Denver Broncos versus Detroit Lions, 43.6% rostered. Tennessee Titans versus Jacksonville, 26% rostered. And then the Los Angeles Chargers versus the New York Giants at 7.3% rostered. So, Jay, who is your favorite on that list?
As much as it hurts me to say it, as a Giants fan, I got to go with the Chargers. Daniel Jones is likely out multiple weeks now. His replacement, Mike Glennon, is out with a concussion. There's a very good chance that Jake Fromm, who we just signed last week, could be the starting quarterback. Kadarius Toney's banged up. Sterling Shepard's banged up. Both of those guys might not be back, but even if they are, with Jake Fromm under center, who's barely been on the team as long as my son's been alive, it's going to be bad. It's going to be really ugly. Barkley does not look good. He's just not healthy. They're forcing them. The only weapon they have right now is Kenny Golladay, and teams are double covering him. If you want to call Kenny Golladay a weapon, there's a good opportunity for this Giants offense isn't explosive, and there's going to be lots of opportunities for turnovers. You take one of those to the house, and you could have a really big day.
I agree. And Toby, is the Chargers your favorite, or do you have someone else that you like even more?
I like the Broncos. If Swift's out, I know the Lions just came back and won against the Minnesota Vikings, but I mean, Minnesota on that last touchdown wasn't even playing on the goal line for some reason.
I don't get it.
I mean, I don't know if I trust the Minnesota Vikings defense that isn't really good outside of Danielle Hunter and Eric Kendricks, who both of them didn't even play. So I'm going to go with the Broncos. They've shown that they can create turnovers. Pat Surtain had a pick six last week. Jared Goff doesn't scare me. If there's no Swift, I mean, they have Surtain, Kyle Fuller, both great corners. Justin Simmons at safety, Kareem Jackson. Kenny Young's playing well in the middle. They're getting pressure with Shelby Harris and Malik Reed. So I'm going to go with the Broncos. I like the Chargers, but every time I go pick up a defense that's playing a backup quarterback, they always do bad. So I'm going to let everybody else have them so they have a good week. Just let everybody else have the Chargers, and I'm going to stay away so they can.
That's nice of you, Toby.
This is the backup. So yeah. it could break your curse.
Okay, yeah.
Right, yeah. That's true.
For me, I'm going to have to steal Jay's pick as well. I think, honestly, every team we listed on here it has a great matchup. Honestly, the Carolina Panthers might have the toughest matchup with Atlanta, but they're pretty turnover prone. So for me, it's Los Angeles Chargers. One, they have the great matchup against the Giants this week. And then looking forward through their playoffs, week 15 could be tough against Kansas City, but I mean, that offense has not looked the same for the last half of this year, even though they've been winning. Week 16 at Houston doesn't get much better than that. And then week 17 versus Denver, who again is not really a high octane offense. They ran the ball well this past week, but their passing game doesn't scare anybody. So, and the Chargers are built to stop the pass. Hopefully, obviously, Joey Bosa ends up coming back healthy, and I think it wasn't as serious as they were expecting. So I think he might be back this week, but we'll find out. But for me, if I'm looking long term, the Chargers are, I said, probably available in almost all of your leagues. And you might be able to hold them through the playoffs, and you might want to pick up somebody for week 15, or you can just kind of roll with it against the Chiefs, and hopefully Patrick Mahomes doesn't destroy you.
Yeah, there is two defense that I would think about holding as well through this week. That's the Eagles and the Dolphins. They have pretty easy per se. I mean, when you're thinking of defense,
the Eagles had an easy matchup this week, and they did. They killed me in a lot of leagues because I played them on bitter. Because
they look good on paper, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
The Dolphins, their sack numbers these past 2 or 3 weeks have been insane, and that helps Javian Howard and Byron Jones, two elite corners on the outside. So you could see them turn it around. They get the Titans, Saints, and Jets. So in the next 3 weeks, and then the Eagles have the football team twice and the Giants, who could be either Mike Glennon or Jake Fromm again. So
Yeah. Yeah,
they look
I'm
pretty
with you. I
decent.
definitely think I don't normally like to hold on to more than
Yeah.
one defenses. What's up, David? But yeah, I'm with you, especially with that Eagles call. Could be the Giant. Going into the semifinals. Going to having Jake Fromm as the opposing quarterback, and the football team twice. They're not an explosive offense. Here lately, they've really slowed the game down.
Mhm.
So you don't expect a high scoring game with the football team. So yeah, I'm with you. I think the Eagles, if you're going to stash a defense, that's the one to do it.
Perfect. And great segue. Thank you guys of who you should or should not consider dropping. We're going to talk about some drop candidates. So I'm just going to name some guys off this list so everyone can see on the bottom of the screen. Everyone we'd consider dropping. Not saying you have to drop them, just somebody give you some thought. So I'm going to name some. All these guys are rostered in over 50% of ESPN leagues, and you just let me know if you would drop them or not. And obviously with the caveat of we're going to week 14, you need a win potentially, and then you're also just looking hopefully into the playoffs. So we have QB Derek Carr at 69.3% rostered. Do you trust him in the playoffs?
No, especially with no Darren Waller. It was earlier in the season. It would look like the stretch that he has coming up because he does have a good schedule, but this offense just hasn't looked the same as it did earlier in the season. Did lose a weapon in Henry Ruggs. Darren Waller's hurt. Who knows when he's going to come back? I do expect Darren Waller to be back, but in specifically one QB leagues, I think he's droppable. Superflex, you can't drop him because of that schedule. But yeah, you definitely can't trust him right now.
All right. For running backs, Mark Ingram, 73.6% rostered.
I'd hold. I'm going to handcuff him.
Fair enough.
Because I don't know how serious I don't know if Kamara's coming back too early or anything, so I'm holding.
Anybody who could potentially step into high volume if the starter goes out, there's somebody you want on your roster.
We've talked about this running back a lot lately, and he finally had a touchdown. Mike Davis, 51.4% rostered. Honestly, I'd still drop him even after that touchdown.
Yeah.
He only had
I would have dropped him a month ago.
He only had like 27 yards on the ground. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So this is a tough one. This is more injury related. Adam Thielen looks like he has a high ankle sprain. They have a Thursday night game, so I don't think there's any way he's playing this week. But honestly, if it's a high ankle sprain, that's usually a 4 to 6 week injury, which gets you through the playoffs. I think if you have the roster space, you're obviously going to stash him and hold. But if you are really tight on roster space, would you consider dropping him?
Only in the most dire of circumstances. Like literally, you have to drop him to have a starter, because I don't think that he will be. Like you said, they're playing Thursday. There's virtually no chance I'm playing Thursday. But Scott Fish was on the show today, the game show on Front Yard Fantasy, and he said that Thielen had a similar injury a couple of years ago and was back within 2 weeks. So you never know. I'm with you. Every time I've heard high ankle sprain, 4 to 6 weeks is what I've heard. But he's a Vikings fan, so he knows Thielen a lot more than many of us would. Just that level of talent, it's really, really hard to drop when it's not a season-ending injury. So the only way I would drop him is if you're in a like you win to get in or win for even if it's just seeding, I'd still hold on to him. If you have to drop him to have a starter and you're playing for the playoffs on the line, that's really the only situation I would drop him.
What about the Denver wide receivers, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, both 80% rostered? They haven't done anything.
I'm a hold. I think there's worse options on the waiver wire right now that you would drop them for. Jeudy looks good. He had 10 targets.
I would hang on to Jeudy, but I think Cortland Sutton's droppable. I think he's become third in the pecking order behind Jeudy and Tim Patrick.
Would you drop Sutton for the guys that we talked about today? Or would it have to be like a Bateman or Elijah Moore?
I drop him for Gage in a heartbeat. Who are some of the other guys that we talked about?
Amon-Ra.
Not Amon-Ra. I would hang on to
cut the
Sutton.
line there.
Amon-Ra.
Okay.
Yeah. So Bateman, Gage, I would drop him for. Amon-Ra, I just don't trust the Lions offense. Plus, I still, there has been that little bit of a connection between Jared Goff and Josh Reynolds from back at the LA Rams days. So I do still think that there could be something there. And Zach, like you said, I want to see Amon-Ra get this type of target share when DeAndre Swift is back, if he does come back. So.
All right, so we have 2 wide receivers that are out for very different reasons. Antonio Brown's on a 3-game suspension, so he won't be back until your Week 16 matchup, 79.5% rostered. And then Calvin Ridley is also taking time away from the game right now while he's dealing with his own issues, which is great that he's handling that. We have no idea if he's going to be back this season or not. Would you hold on to either of them, or at this point, do you just need to clear up some roster space and handle your injuries and bye weeks?
I think Antonio Brown, I would not drop. We saw that Tom Brady, he's one of Tom Brady's favorite targets, in his loaded wide receiver room. He is going to be back. It looks like he's pretty much healed from his ankle injury that's kept him out multiple weeks. So just waiting on that suspension. And he's that type of boost that could, push you over the edge for a championship. Calvin Ridley, if you can hang on to him, I would, but I don't think he's going to wind up coming back this season. But he's just, if he does decide to come back for the last couple of games, he's not somebody, I'm not actively looking to drop him, but, if you've got somebody that you need to handcuff, if you've got Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram's out there, or, some of the other handcuffs that have. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Stuff like that.
At that point, they're likely, you're basically, it's the same type of player. It's basically a lottery ticket. And there's a lot better chance of those backup running backs returning value, any sort of value, than there is a Calvin Ridley this season.
I'm indifferent on the Antonio Brown. I tweeted this too. I think he's droppable in places that you don't have an hour spot where he's probably sitting right now. And just because when he comes back Week 16, he's coming off an ankle injury. He just spent 3 weeks suspended. I don't know how much of a snap percentage he'll get, especially with how dominant they look and how bad the Panthers have been playing. And then he gets the Jets, and with the record that they might have, they might temper expectations in that game as well. So if I'm trying to win now these next 2 with this week and then win my week 1 of the playoffs, and there's a better guy sitting out there, I think I'll go ahead and drop him. I'm not saying he's not great. He's not the number 3 option. It's just a matter of circumstance.
Fair enough. And then I think these next 3 are all, for me, easy drops. They're all over 60% roster. We have Marvin Jones Jr., Allen Robinson, and Corey Davis. And Corey Davis is hurt now. So I think those are all.
Corey Davis is out for the season now, I think.
Yeah. That just broke a little bit ago. So, yeah.
Cool. And then this is a tough one, but I wanted to put him on here just for you, Jay. Kenny Galladay, 63.5% rostered. Now he's got Jake Fromm throwing him the ball, possibly.
Exactly. Gosh, that's terrible. Yeah, I mean,
with Daniel Jones out multiple weeks, I'm dropping him. I think I'd rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I wouldn't for Amon-Ra St. Brown, but Russell Gage, Bateman.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no scenario that I would feel comfortable starting Kenny Galladay. So, again, I wouldn't actively look to drop him, but I completely understand. Amon-Ra, I couldn't do it for him, but Russell Gage, Bateman, some of the other guys that we were talking about, I can see it. I mean, even with Daniel Jones, he hasn't done much of anything this season. So, yeah, he's droppable.
All right, this is our last one, which I never thought he'd make it on this list, but honestly, I think he deserves to be on this list, is tight end Noah Fant at 81% rostered.
Yeah, he hasn't done anything all season. This passing offense has not looked good. Really, the only part of this offense I want is passing offense is Jerry Jeudy, and then Tim Patrick, as of a flex play. But other than that, I want no part of it.
I agree.
All right, so pick up some of the tight ends we recommended and get Fant off your roster. So that's all we had for tonight, guys. So Jay, thank you for coming on. It was a lot of fun. Can you remind everyone where they can find you, and then feel free to plug any of your content you have going on?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at GMenJ. I'm a part of the team over at Front Yard Fantasy. We have a lot of content on our YouTube channel. Best way you can support us is to go to our YouTube channel, subscribe. We do a game show Monday through Friday where we mix. It's kind of like to describe it as like the Tonight Show for fantasy football. We bring a different guest on, play a game. We mix the fantasy advice with some fun. We have video content that we drop pretty much daily. Like I said, our guy Joey Wright drops. It's called Start, Sits, and Salutations. It's SNL meets fantasy football, so it's a lot of fun. And then we do some shows on FanDuel's network on Friday and Sunday. Friday at 6 p.m. and Sunday at 7 p.m. So give us a look over there.
Awesome. And Toby, what do you have going on this week?
Just Wallpaper Wednesdays as usual. Might stop in the Front Yard Fantasy stream tomorrow and get suggestions on it for this week.
There you go.
It's a cool idea. So go watch Front Yard Fantasy.
Playing tiers tomorrow too, so
Yeah.
you get a player idea from that. So got our guy Sully coming on.
Go watch Front Yard Fantasy and tune in. You might see a sneak peek at who the player's going to be for Wednesday.
There you go. A little sneak peek. And then I can't stress this enough. The best way to support our show is to subscribe to the Triple Play Fantasy channel on YouTube, but also because of all the content we're putting out. So we're doing football, basketball, baseball. There's a lot going on in the sports world right now. We're putting out stuff for Devy content for anyone who plays in those leagues. We have waiver wires for basketball going on right now. We have preseason baseball, talking about mock drafts going on right now because we're already getting ready for a baseball season. So there's a lot coming out in the Triple Play fantasy team. So please go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any of that content. We'll be back here next Monday night to get you ready for the first round of the playoffs, week 15, with another special guest. But thank you guys again. Follow us at the Tripwire Pod. Have a great night.